So, hi, Laura.
Hi, Janelle.
I'm so glad that you're going to be telling your story with Jesus today. And just to get started, what was your situation like when you were born?
So when I was born with a disability,
Mm-hmm.
and that's called arthrogryposis. And it basically means stiff joints and a lack of muscles. And so as I grew up physically, my muscles did not keep pace with my body size.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that's why I use a power wheelchair. It's very difficult for me to build any muscle,
Mm-hmm.
and I could make a full time job of trying to have enough strength to walk, um, but I would never get there.
Okay.
So uh, it just kind of made more sense to just go with the wheelchair and
Mm-hmm.
kind of focus my energies elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
um some people have that immense drive to like go be a Paralympian.
Yes.
uh I do not have that physical drive.
Yes.
um yeah, and so I'm the youngest of four kids.
Mm-hmm.
um, and we grew up in Pollock Pines.
Yes.
They actually lived in Sacramento, and they moved to Pollock Pines when my mom was pregnant with me.
Okay.
Um,
Did they know of your diagnosis before you were born?
no, they
Okay.
did not.
Okay.
And so that was a very difficult time for my parents, finding out just like when I came out,
Okay.
essentially.
Yeah.
Um, that was a really hard time for them. And uh, there's a lot of stories from that time that could
Right.
probably, I don't know, maybe my mom should write a book.
Right. Right.
um
So your parents, you were the youngest of four.
mhm.
So, and you were up in Pollock Pines. And so was your family a family of faith?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, they were. Yeah, we grew up going to church, and kind of your typical like childhood in the church, like go to the service, go to Sunday school, um, wait for mom to talk to everyone in the church before we could actually drive home.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
um, Although now I have become somewhat of that sometimes.
You're that
So
person now.
like mother,
Yes.
like daughter.
Yes. I love it.
um, and so yeah, we did grow up in church.
Mm-hmm.
But having a disability, I was for a long time I didn't know really anyone else with a disability. Like I knew that like they were out there, so to speak,
Right. But
but
Pollock Pines is small.
it is very small.
Yes.
Even smaller 20 years ago when I
Yes.
was
Oh,
a kid.
oh
It made me kind of like the only one, and so it made me very recognizable by virtue of being in a wheelchair.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
um, when you're the only disabled kid, you kind of stick out.
Mm-hmm.
Although I was never bullied
Mm-hmm.
ever, um, which I really think is a God thing,
Mm-hmm.
because I hear plenty of stories from other disabled folks that I know that were bullied. And so it was certainly nothing I did.
Right.
So uh, I can only suppose that God was, shepherding me and guarding me from that. So yeah, I was never bullied. But
Did,
like another layer of like being the only disabled kid is that everyone feels very inspired by you.
hmm,
And so I
big expectations on you.
kind of, yeah, big expectations were fine, but it was more actually that they were inspired by me for very small, just regular everyday things. Like, I'm so glad you're out of the house.
Okay.
And so kind of what happened there is that I kind of got a really big head.
Okay. Yeah.
And so as a kid, I really struggled to relate to what I was being taught in church and Sunday school of we're all sinners and we need Jesus to save us. I was like, well, I've never done anything bad, so I don't feel like I need him, and I feel like I can just kind of keep being perfect all through life and be fine. And so I really, like, I didn't like dislike church or anything, but I just like didn't really connect to it in that very deeply personal way as a kid. Because another aspect of like growing up disabled is that you become, when your mom is your caregiver and you like can't even use the restroom on your own, you become very close with your mom and just with all the adults that are helping take care of you. And so, you know, it made me very aware of how dependent that I am. And it did not inspire me to like try shenanigans as a kid. For the most part, there were some shenanigans, of course, but very limited, you know, because I don't drive, so
you're very dependent.
You know, I wasn't gonna go ask an adult to be like, hey, let me go to the grocery store so I can just like buy a ton of candy. Like that was never in the cards. And so yeah, being disabled kind of added those layers to my childhood of kind of getting a really big head and just really not connecting very deeply to the fact of our sin nature that everyone has. And so,
and since you're cooperating with your caregivers, your sins aren't obvious in the same way.
Yeah. That's a really good added point of if I did do shenanigans, like they were very hidden. Because I was just very aware of how dependent I was on these other people, and so, you know, I just kind of kept being good, but then over time that like really cemented things as like I must be good in order to keep receiving care so that I don't just, you know, like sit in my own human waste. Like you know, so that I can keep living my life.
Which is religion.
All
right? You have to be good so that you can get loved, you know, right?
Yeah, so that was kind of like certainly not on purpose and certainly with no malicious intent. But that's just kind of like what I took away from that.
That's how you took it.
Yeah.
So can I ask you, maybe not connecting with your sin nature or the gospel, the need of the gospel, did you still believe in God?
Yes, I did still believe in God. I just kind of, you know, and you're like a little kid, so, you know, you're not really thinking about like the fullness of history when you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm good enough on my own. Like, no, there's no one. We've been through this.
So what would you say your idea and relationship, did you, if you even had one, like did you pray?
What did you think of pray some. I would kind of as like a checking the box kind of emotion.
Gotcha.
I would go through phases where I'd be really good about reading my Bible every day. But yeah, just the personal connection with it just wasn't there, because anytime I did something small, I have, often strangers, but, your mom isn't gonna, like, if a stranger says, "Oh, wow, it's so nice to see you out and about," like, your mom isn't gonna immediately, like, undermine that. Like, it's
Right.
on at face value, it's nice. And so, like, whoever you're with is not gonna be like, "Oh, actually, this is nothing," like, you know,
Right.
because there is a lot of logistics to getting out of the house. It's
Yes.
just like, that's really not
That's your normal.
that's far from the extent of my skill set.
Right. Right. It's
so
not all of who you are as a person either.
yeah.
But it's how people
But, like,
relate might relate to you, because that's the most obvious.
yeah. And so, like, I don't know, it just kind of adapted to that. And like, I don't think they're coming out with invisible wheelchairs anytime soon. So
Oh my God. You've had that thought though.
so, like, I guess I just kind of adapted to, like, okay, I'm disabled, and some people are just gonna relate to me this way, and that's just kind of how it'll go.
So how did your relationship towards God, with God, change?
So it changed in big ways when I moved out of the house and went to college.
Okay.
So that was a time in my life in which suddenly I had a lot more freedom than I had ever had before. I had a lot more space to feel like I could make whatever choices I wanted.
Sure.
And I only see my caregiver like once every 3 hours to use the restroom, kind of a thing. And for the most part, otherwise I'm like on my own. So that made an awful lot of space for me to make some poor choices.
Some shenanigans.
Yeah.
Have we used the word before?
Yes, okay. Yes. A much higher level of shenanigans than I had ever had space to engage in before. And so, yeah. So that was probably like a little under a year, but like my first year kind of away from home, I kind of went a little crazy. And then God used my childhood best friend. I mean, I ignored a lot of red flags, and it was kind of like, well, like, I'm not hurting anyone, so what's the deal? It's fine, and it's fun, and so God used my childhood best friend. I was staying home at my parents' for the weekend, and she came over and spent the night like we used to do when we were little girls.
Yeah.
And she just super convicted me. And when Jesus drops that conviction on your heart, it's like a guillotine. Like, it cuts it off, and all of a sudden you like just can't even fathom how you got here. And so yeah, I was able to break away from those choices that I had made. And so that was certainly a very good first step. Kind of unavoidable.
Right.
And it took, I feel like it took a few more months for that conviction to work on my heart. And there is a verse which, like, not necessarily the exact verse was floating around in my head, because I was kind of far from God at that point. But there was a couple of verses that really, looking back, it was like, Oh, that's what the Bible is talking about.
Yes.
Which was Psalm 32:3.
Mm-hmm.
For when I kept silent, my bones wasted away through my groaning all day long. And then James 5:16. Therefore, confess your sins to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous person has great power as it is working. And so, looking back, those verses were very much over my heart at that time. And so I didn't want to confess anything to anyone.
Right.
You know, you never do.
Right.
That's the whole point of it. It wants to stay in the dark.
Right.
And so I think first I actually called my high school youth pastor, and he was kind of in a way easier to kind of confess to first. Sorry, I was trying not to cry. He was sort of like a person to start with, because I don't know. I guess he had been very open about his story when we were in high school. And so I knew that I could trust him to not just instantly shun me and never talk to me again. But my parents, who I had, as I was kind of saying before, you grow up and you become very aware of how dependent on them you are, and so you just always be good. And so that concept that I kind of took away from all that of be good so that you are loved, which is not true.
Right.
That concept was really scaring me about confessing to my parents, and also God had laid it on my heart to also confess to my siblings, and so that was like a real whirlwind of a week, because it kind of got to a point where I just could not take the conviction anymore. And I just all that week I called up my siblings and talked to them, because they weren't all, well, one sibling was not in the area anymore. The other two were. So I talked to the one out of town over the phone first, I think.
You're taking the wider berth to start, and then we'll go closer.
Sometimes, a nice mix of ripping the Band-Aid off, but slowly. So yeah, then I talked to my siblings, and that was kind of that whole experience of confessing to my youth pastor first, and then my siblings, and then eventually my parents. That was when I truly and personally, for the first time in my life, felt the love of Jesus and the enormity of what he had done for us, and felt his forgiveness just all at once. All at once, I kind of learned, I am sinful. And this is how much he really does love us. And so that was a very powerful week in my life, of talking to them, and I was kind of working my way up to my parents, and my brother showed me love. My brother that was in town showed me love by saying that he would sit with me while I told them, because it was going to work out that I would be telling them in person. And so he sat with me, and you know, even though like as I kind of worked my way up to them and stuff, and nobody shunned me, and everyone was very loving and forgiving, you know, it was still terrifying to tell them. But then they just shattered, you know, that notion that I had taken away, that you know, you have to be good, because they didn't like shun me either.
Right.
They also responded in love and forgiveness. And then after that, I had never felt so free.
Mm.
I had never felt so free as I did right after that. And so, yeah,
It's a lot.
that changed a lot for me. Because before I had still been going to church throughout.
Even when you were
said
away
poor
at college.
choices,
right?
Because I was at the same college as two of my siblings.
Okay.
And so they weren't gonna not let me go to church.
Right. They would notice.
Yeah, they would notice, and then parents would hear about it, and yeah. And so after that, it became much more of kind of it became much more of a relationship with Jesus, of like, thank you for putting that on my heart. Thank you for putting all the right people in at all the right times to have talked to me and been with me and, you know, walked me through that. And so, yeah, it really brought it home. I think I was able to forgive myself after I experienced the forgiveness of everyone else that I felt laid on my heart to confess to. I think that they kind of showed me, you know, like, we all have this sin nature, and, you know, I have, you know, gotten out of those poor choices now, and, you know, this is something that everyone goes through, kind of. And so I think that beforehand, the just sheer terror of saying things out loud to other people just completely took up all my bandwidth. I wasn't even really thinking about myself at that point.
Yeah.
I was mainly thinking of, like, this is gonna pull up my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then it didn't, and truly, by the grace of God, there were myriad opportunities for my life to have taken some severe left turns in the midst of the choices that I was making.
But God's mercy in your childhood friend and in the love of your family.
Well, and just His protection while I was making bad choices.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. But they didn't have further consequence than they did. Yeah. So you felt freer than you had ever felt before, and you knew the love of Jesus in a way that you hadn't known before.
And so then I kind of was like, okay, I'm gonna, like, stay on the straight and narrow for a while. Like, I'm not gonna date anyone, and I'm not gonna, you know, like, I'm just gonna go to school and go to church, do my homework, and, like, get home for weekends when I can, and, you know, just, like, sink into the love of my family.
Yes.
And so that was what I did for at least a couple of years. I ended up spending 5 years in college. So I guess I managed to not date anyone for like a year or a year and a half, maybe 2 years.
Okay.
And then Andy kind of, I'm nodding at him because he's
sitting
over
over
there
here.
at the other
There we
end
go.
of the table. And then Andy and I connected.
At college?
Yes. Well, I mean, I kind of after that amount of time had elapsed, I did kind of look into online dating,
Yeah.
which terrified my mom. She thought I was going to meet an axe murderer, as mothers are wont to think.
Yes. Well, and it was a new thing, so
Yeah.
much more common now. Yes.
Yeah, but back then it was kind of shady business.
Right.
But yeah, Andy and I connected and started dating, and then kind of just kept kind of going up the launch ramp to adult life, kind of, and finished in college, and finding a life partner, and I was still like, certainly there was like kind of that freedom high right after, which, I mean, no high is sustainable. And so it kind of like settled back into kind of everyday life. And so then at that point, I feel like the enemy was kind of routine. And so I stayed connected to God, but not necessarily like super strongly. And yeah, I finished college and we dated, and so we got married. I'm trying to think. We got married like 6 months after I graduated, right? Yeah. Because I had been looking for a job, and how did I forget that? Yay, job.
It was big back then, but it's in the past now. So.
Yeah. And so God really provided in that I knew I wanted to work for the state like my dad did. And so I was just applying to everything under the sun at the state, like just get my toe in the door kind of a thing. And then of all places, I mean, I'd had a few interviews at that point, but I was amazed to hear back from the California Department of Justice. I was like, I'm a child. What do you mean you might want to hire me?
Right.
And then it was really God's provision that they offered me a job like days before our wedding.
Oh, wow.
And
lots of celebration then.
Yeah. So that was 2014 was a really big year. I graduated college. I got married. We got a wheelchair accessible van, which I didn't really have in college. My parents had a car, but I didn't take it with me to college because I don't drive. And we got married, and I got to start my job that I'm still at 11 and a half years later.
Awesome.
And so there was just so much provision in that time, and it was such a whirlwind and just such a happy time.
Right. You're a newlywed, and you have wheels, and you have a job.
Yeah. So that was really exciting. And then we kind of just settled into married life, and eventually we bought a house up here in El Dorado County because I grew up here. We compromised, and Andy does not have to shovel snow because we didn't move that high up, although I wanted to. And yeah, now it's just kind of that married life and working, and and
good.
So
So I am going to ask your husband about his life with Jesus, and if there's anything more that you wanted to share before I bring you back together, you're welcome to do that. Otherwise,
I just think one of the things about being disabled is that there are logistics forever. So many logistics
forever.
pretty much.
Yes.
And I think I mentioned earlier that I need help to use the restroom. And one of the amazing ways that God has provided in my life is, I mean, you can just kind of think about your own self and how often you need to go.
Right.
And God has always provided someone to help me. I have never once had an accident because there was no one.
Wow.
Which, when you think about it, is wild.
Yes.
And so I wouldn't. It feels like kind of an uncool thing to be like part of my testimony, but I think that like I would have chosen something cooler, like I fight off sharks or something. But
no,
here we are. And I just think it's incredible that God has, always provided.
Right.
Because
someone around you.
People see a disability and they immediately think how much you don't have, how much you need help with and what you can't do. But I think it's just a really beautiful platform that Jesus uses to show, if that's how much he cares about the sparrows, how much more does he care about us? Because, there's so many logistics and
that we don't even think about.
And they have all worked out and they just keep on working out. And so I just think that's kind of an important part.
It's a big deal.
And obviously I'm wildly grateful to have never had to deal with an accident.
Right.
So I would just like sneak that in there.
Sure. All right. Thank you, Laura. Let's get Andy in front of the camera. Hi, friends. Before we continue, you may want to pause this episode and go listen to the next episode with Andy. Laura and Andy's interview together is also included at the end of his episode. If you continue playing, you're going to hear their interview together now. Thanks for listening. So when we left off with you, you talked about being married and we kind of left it at that and then let Andy tell his story. And I just wondered if there was anything you wanted to talk about with how you saw Jesus in your married life, even with some of these things that your husband was going through. What did that look like from your perspective?
So as I had kind of said at the end of mine, my enemy was then routine. So I wasn't really. Are you a bobblehead?
No.
You might be. It's okay. You're a cute bobblehead. But routine was kind of my new enemy to fight against. And so I was not, we went to church, but I wasn't, at least I don't think I was really doing anything in particular to kind of pull myself or Andy or us together really closer to Jesus. So it was kind of like, okay, I believe in God. I believe I am a sinner. I believe that he rose to save me from my sins and all of us. And we're going to church, we're tithing, we're checking the boxes. So we're good. And I didn't ever really push it past that. And so I am very grateful that Chris never stops pushing. And so, honestly, his trip to that conference was kind of life-changing for us both because it was very directly impactful on Andy, obviously, but for me to witness the change in him was also really powerful, because like as he shared, like things were getting kind of stressful a bit before it, with work and things, and you know, as he mentioned, he was really tied to his phone, and he was just really, really kind of, it sounds like a bad thing to say about your husband, but he was just like very uptight. He was very like closed off, like did not, you know, just wanted to, like at family gatherings, which should be like, you know, where you relax and let loose and enjoy time with your loved ones. Like, he wouldn't even hardly play cornhole out of the fear of being bad at it.
Okay. He's in his head.
He was very much in his head. Yeah. And suddenly, when he comes back from Colorado, suddenly, like, his heart is on his sleeve, and I'm like, who is this? It was just a really powerful thing to see because he was just so stressed and concerned and trying to do everything under his own power before, and very concerned with how he looked to others and what others thought of him, and like what contribution he was making at any given moment of the day, night and day. And just to see him come back and like be so loose, and like suddenly he's plugging his phone in like 10 feet away from the bed at night, and you know, he was I think he was advised, and it was very wise advice, but he got back, you know, in the wee weird hours of the night, and I wanted to hear how it was, and he wouldn't tell me anything. He said, just wait for tomorrow morning and we'll have breakfast together, and then I'll tell you all about it. And then we had like a 3-hour breakfast of me hearing everything that, like, it was just really powerful. And just getting to see him become the spiritual leader of us, in a way that before he was more concerned about like career and that kind of contribution, and then after it was way more like, what are we doing for Jesus? And I was like, oh, I better like buckle up over here. But it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I'm trying not to cry again.
That's wonderful. So what does life with Jesus look like now together?
Right. Well, I think for me it involves, and for both of us, you know, it involves a lot more intentionality and prayer and taking time to consider the cost of certain activities before we do them. So for example, you know, if there's another, you know, men's event coming up and it's like, oh, I really want to go do that, but that would take away from, you know, the time that we have together, maybe, or take away from this time, even the time we have for sleep. You know, that's something that we want to take into account and bring to God to kind of get a direction on that. And so I think we've both started to do that more. We now have a strong habit of praying before bed every night. Together, yes. Awesome. And we both do, I would say we both do daily quiet time, although I think Laura's better at it than I am. I do miss occasionally. But, you know, we both journal and, yeah, we just have deeper conversations, I think.
With each other and with God. And just kind of seek his guidance on things, more things than we used to. I mean, I don't know if we're by no means perfect, but I mean, it made us a lot more open to radical answers from God. And one of the ways that kind of manifested was, is it okay if I tell this story? Obviously, I won't say his name. A certain teenager.
I can tell it indirectly, yeah.
I can always take it off or edit it.
Yeah, you can tell it indirectly.
I'm not going to share like any intimate details, but basically, we heard. I feel like this is where God has a sense of humor, and I still scroll social media. Who doesn't? And on social media, someone from church said, I have this teenager and he needs a place to live until he turns 18. And I kind of elbowed Andy and I was like, well, we have a spare bedroom. What should we do? And then it kind of started, like, it worked its way into like all of our conversations, kind of, in a way. Like, it was constantly at the back of our minds. And so we took a couple of hours. We set aside a couple of hours and we turned off all the screens, all the devices, all that, and we separated because we were like, we don't want to influence each other. We both just want to hear from God. So we separated ourselves and we pretty much just took like our Bibles and a pencil and paper, and our question was like, God, are you asking us to say yes to this?
Yeah.
Because it feels insane.
Yeah.
And we both heard yes, like resounding, like it could not have been more clear if there were neon signs and like gongs. And so we were, before Colorado, like it never would have even gotten that far.
Right.
We would have just been like, this is insane. There's no way we can take care of a teenager.
Right.
Like, no, obviously. But God's answer was yes. And it was kind of a whirlwind. I think it was about 2 weeks from when I saw that post on Facebook to him moving into our house. And he was able to stay with us for
about 8 months,
like
I think.
8 or 9 months. Yeah. And it, it was just crazy. Like, 3 months before that, it would have been like a no-brainer, no. But we both just really opened ourselves up more to God. What do you want us to do?
Yeah.
And so, I think that's a really big example of like how far open God pried him open, and then I was, felt really led to follow in that.
And you're seeking him together, which includes seeking him apart and then coming back together and
comparing notes. So to speak. So that was just a really big and powerful example. There's not been anything so big since that.
That's
on that scale.
That's
taking a teenager frame.
Well, and even just your yes is just, and your yes is powerful, and then his grace to sustain you through that decision and through living that out is wonderful.
So
how do you see Andy playing from his heart? Do you see
he's definitely more relaxed. Like family gatherings is where I see it the most. Like there was one that was fairly soon after I have a lot of nieces and nephews, so it was a niece, or no, it was a nephew nearby-ish, about an hour away, and we were at, I think it was his birthday. I don't know exactly what event.
I think it was
I don't remember.
It doesn't matter. It was somebody's birthday.
It was someone's birthday. It's always someone's birthday. And later in the party, some of the kids went out and were riding all the wheeled devices around on the patio. And I was chatting with my sisters and my mom and whatnot, and suddenly I'm like, wait, where's Andy? And he's out there riding in circles with the little kids on a scooter. And like past Andy, like that would have been way too unprofessional.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Are
you purposefully choosing things to be playful and to operate from your heart?
Yes and no, honestly. I mean, I think you used the word purposefully. I mean, it's not something that I'm necessarily deciding to do. It's just something that I'm doing. You know, and maybe the best way to describe it is, like Laura said, there would have been some barrier there in the past. Like something would have, just the stop sign would have gone up in my head. It's like, oh no, that we're not going to do that. You know, maybe it sounds fun to do. We're not going to do that. And now that stop sign is just not there anymore. So it's not so much I'm like intentionally deciding to go, you know, ride around.
There's just self-forgetfulness.
Like, yeah. I'm just allowing myself to do it more.
Yeah.
And I still think I have quite a ways to go on that. Actually, I could probably use some more hobbies that are not work.
I keep trying to get him into gaming. It's not working.
Yeah. Oh, it might be something else.
Yeah.
That's playful. So yeah. So I just want to offer an opportunity. Is there anything either one of you want to say more about who Jesus is to you?
I just say he's a constant companion and a friend and a trustworthy leader.
Yeah. I think for me, just he's personal.
Yeah.
Which obviously he's been trying to show me my whole entire life by how all of my disability logistics have been working out. But sometimes he just really drives it home extra that like he loves me.
Yeah.
And he forgives me. And you know, there's so much that can come out of that, and so much that does come out of that.
And I think to add on to that, he's there whether you know it or not. Look back over my entire 35 years of living and see his fingerprints on everything, even if that's not, I had no knowledge of it at the time, but it's never too late to lean into that. And he's always extending the invitation. And so there's no better time than now to say yes.
I like that. Well, thank you for saying yes to telling your story.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
I appreciate it. All right.
Thank you, Janelle.
Thank you, Janelle.
Thank you.